to help uh, the healing process. As a young boy, it was perfect. Small town, didn't worry about crime, didn't worry about that sort of thing. My dad's parents were a little more than 5 minutes bicycle ride away. My mom's parents were maybe 10 minutes bicycle ride away. Both of my grandparents, they were very close to one another. They were always doing things together. And so for a young boy, that was just a great thing. Spent most Friday nights at my mom's parents' home. But there are people that were in that church, and I've mentioned a few of them over the years, and names that for most people would never stand out, but they're heroes to me because they helped me become grounded and established. And I would say they were as much family to me as people I'm related to by blood. In fact, I was far closer to them than many people I'm related to. There was a lady, and I've talked about her before. Her name was Sister Mock. She had palsy, and her and her husband owned a little shoe store downtown. It was not fancy shoes at all. It was just a small little shoe store. And, of course, I thought they were really, really old, and they were probably in their mid-50s at that time. I thought they were super old. And but Sister Mock taught my Sunday school class, and Sister Mock, in the days of the felt board and all of that sort of thing, she would act out the Sunday school classes. And one of the things that stands out, just as if it had happened this week, as the kids began to gather in the class, she had taped a stick across her eye. And that stick was just taped across her eye, and she welcomed the kids. She acted like everything was fine. There wasn't anything wrong. She didn't have anything on her face. She was just acting normal. And she went about the class, and of course she taught the lesson on, a mote in your eye. But it just stood out because she was willing to go the extra mile to act it out. If there was somebody, one of the kids was in the altar, she was going to be there as soon as they got to the altar, and she would stay in the altar until they left the altar. I'm thankful for those people in my life, that they're spiritual family that helped me establish. There was a gentleman that had had a heart attack. He, husband and wife, he was probably mid-60s, maybe a little older. He had retired. He had had some heart troubles, health issues, and there was a lot of land across the street from his home that he had been allowed to hunt on. And so he just came up to me one day, and again, I was probably 13 or 14, and he said, "How about us starting to go squirrel hunting on Saturday mornings?" He said, I'm not going to go early. He said, "We'll just meet me about 10 o'clock, and we'll go squirrel hunting, and when we're done, my wife will have lunch fixed." And this was not somebody I was close to. Again, they were well out of my age group. But he didn't even carry a gun. He just walked. He just wanted to walk. And we would go kill our limit of squirrels. And here, squirrel season's year-round. There in East Texas, it's late in the year. It's just a couple of months and not very long. And you've got a limit of squirrels you can kill. But we would do that, get back home, and to his house, his wife would have lunch fixed. And here is a couple that a 14-year-old, maybe 15-year-old, somewhere in there, young man spending time with a couple that was the age of my grandparents, but they invested in my life. And long after we moved away from there, she would, this lady went to church with my wife's mom, and if she heard we were coming into town, she would say, please have him come by to visit me. I'm thankful for that investment, that somebody would look at a young boy and overlook all the faults and all the missteps and say, we are part of the family of God, and I'm going to take you in. And I know there's a lot of missteps, and I know there's a lot of things pulling for you out there in the world, but I'm going to pull just as hard for you into the church and pull you and draw you. And it is a lot easier to talk to you about the things of life while we're walking squirrel hunting or eating lunch than if I just sat down in church and started giving you a list of do's and don'ts. It's a good place to visit. And here is a couple decades older than me that took time to invest in my life. They put more into me than some of those that I'm related to by blood. They put far more into me. There was another gentleman, I've talked about him before. My wife won my mom won their family to church, and he would come by the church and pray, and he said, look, when I come to pray, you're usually out there playing basketball. He said, would you mind just coming in for a couple of minutes and praying with me? And he said, just when I come by, just meet me for a few minutes and pray with me. And that established prayer in my life. Again, somebody that didn't have to. They weren't blood related. But I would say their investment was far more than many of those that I am related to by blood. And today, as I'm older, I esteem these people. I look up to these people. Most of them have long gone on to their reward, but they invested in my life. And one of the reasons I'm here today is because they poured into me when they didn't have to. I'm thankful for those people that said, we are the family of God, and I don't have to, but because we are part of the family of God, I'm going to invest in your life. Part of discipleship is investing in those and making sure that we do all that we can do to thwart the enemy that would love to get into our homes. We're living much longer than we've ever lived before. But sadly, our marriages are lasting much shorter time limits than before. In fact, right now, it is, we're at an all-time low, and this is one of those notes I made a few weeks ago. We're at an all-time low for people to be married for 50 years. In fact, less than 3% of American marriages make it to 50 years. That's sad. That's sad. And many of those that make it to 50 years just put up with one another. And, we've been together a long time, and it'd be too much trouble to get divorced. There's no affection. There's no intimacy. They're just sharing a home together. So though they're not divorced legally, there's a separation there. Though they're in the same home, there is a separation. And part of that, and there's many things that would go into that, but part of that is the enemy. His number one place to attack, and you know this, the best place he can attack the church is by attacking our homes. 30% or 55% of marriages in America end in divorce after 30 years. That's sad that you've invested 3 decades in someone's life and only to go separate ways. Matthew, the 6th chapter, 21st verse, he tells us where our treasure is, that's where our heart is going to be. And it's easy to tell where people's treasures are. They can tell you family's number one, but if they're never with their family, if they spend no time with family, their treasure's not in their family. I believe that you and I have to work constantly to keep the enemy out of our families. He's going to attack our families. He's going to attack our homes. We know that. But if we work together as a family, then we can keep the enemy. When he does attack, we can keep him at bay. The things that we value, the things that we treasure, we take care of, and we see to it that they're well guarded and well tended to. I blow through shoes pretty quick. I go through shoes because of my feet and the way my feet are. I go through shoes pretty fast, and I've got quite a few tennis shoes because they're at various stages. When I first get them, I try not to wear them too much, and the ones I've had, then those become my walking shoes, and then the walking shoes become yard working shoes. So they're on 3 levels there. The yard working shoes, I don't clean the dirt off of them. I don't care how they look. I have a hat, and my grandkids make fun of my hat because it's got holes in the top I've sweated in it so much. It's just a ball cap, and I wash it every few weeks just because it gets to smelling so bad you can't hardly put up with it. But I do that just to keep it from stinking so bad. But it's got holes in it, and it's ragged, and along the brim, it's just the material is just completely worn away. And grandkids make fun of it, but I tell them, I said, this is a special hat. There is not another hat in the whole world like this hat. It's the only hat you'll ever find like this hat. You won't find a hat. But really, when it comes down to it, that hat is mistreated. I've got some hats that I take care of. That one I could care less. If I value something, I'm going to make sure that it's clean. I'm going to make sure that it's put away properly. I'm going to make sure that it's well protected. And if it gets something on it, I'm going to do my best to clean it. We've got to be that way with our homes. If I see something coming in that attacks your home, I don't have to go to you and say, hey, don't do that. But I can love you. I can put my arm around you and tell you, I'm praying with you and for you. I can maybe buy you a cup of coffee. You're my family, and I need to take care of you because you're valuable to me, and you're valuable to God, and you're valuable to the house of God. Adam is given charge of the garden. I don't have time to go into it. But Adam's given charge of the garden. You know the story there. He's given charge, and he's told to maintain the garden. And there's a lot of good commentaries. I don't know how much they know one over the other, but there's a lot that talk about what that means. And but he was to keep the garden in order. He was to maintain the garden. He was to oversee the garden. Of course, God gives him a wife named Eve, and Adam and Eve live in paradise. They live in a place where there was no stress, there was no death, there was no aging. it was truly paradise. But sadly, even in this place of paradise where, they didn't have to put up with in-laws, they didn't have to put up with family they didn't like, they didn't have house payments, there was no stress or there was no tension, there wasn't the things that you and I go through. Adam allows the enemy to come into the garden and allows the enemy to begin to talk to Eve. Adam, you are given charge of the garden. You're supposed to tend to the garden. You're supposed to maintain the garden. That includes your family. And we know that God had told Adam and Eve, you've got this whole garden. You've got run of the whole place. The only thing that you cannot partake of is one tree. And if you do, Genesis 3, he tells them, you will die. Now that's pretty serious. But even without all of the stress, no car payment, no house payment, no insurance payment, do you know that over 60% of America right now says they're under tremendous stress? And the number one reason is finances. America has turned to everything but God. In fact, God gets further and further away, and it's amazing at what some people call God. But Adam and Eve, in a place where they weren't getting up and going to work every day, they didn't kiss goodbye in the morning, and Eve went to work, and Adam went to work, and they come home late in the evening, and he's got to mow the yard or do whatever, and she's got to do jobs around the house, and they're worn out when they go to bed and get back up in the morning and do the same routine. That wasn't their life. There wasn't all of the issues you and I have. But still something had grown to the point between Adam and Eve. Their relationship had grown distant enough that Adam, knowing if Eve eats of this tree, she could die, and he stands there and he watches her eat of this tree. He could care less if she dies. That's horrible. So if in the garden, without all of the stress that you and I don't have, if they could reach that place, how much more should you and I be on our toes guarding our nuclear family, our church family, guarding that the enemy doesn't come in, because it's too easy to say, well, that family, they were good while they were here and now they're gone. No, I don't want that. I want to pull for everybody. I don't want to give up on anybody. I think we got to pull for everybody to make it. It takes me pulling for you and you pulling for me. I love you. I care for you. I care for your home. I care for your family. I don't want things to come between us such that when the enemy comes in, I could care less if he takes you out or not. I don't want that. If that can happen in the garden, it can happen in the church here today. If that can happen with Adam and Eve, it can happen today where I come to church and the enemy takes somebody out and it just doesn't mean that much to me. You don't find Adam on his knees begging Eve, I love you. Please, whatever you do, Eve, come on, we've got this whole garden. I beg you, please don't eat of that. You could die, and I need you, Eve. I've got to have you, Eve. I love you, Eve. I care too much for you. Whatever you do, please don't even touch it, Eve. Don't get close to it. Eve, you're listening to the wrong voice. Remember what God said. Eve, I need you. You're from my own side. You're my spouse. God gave you to me. It was a special day when God blessed me with you. And the last thing I want, Eve, is for you to partake of this tree and to die. Doesn't happen. Something in their relationship had taken them to the place where it wasn't that big a deal to Adam. It didn't matter to Adam. It was okay. Just, if you eat it and you die, okay, I'll move on to the next one. We can't be that way today. I need you. I need you strong in God. I need you being everything you can be in God. I need you on fire for God. I need you praying consistently. I need your worship when I come to church. I need your voice in my life. I love it when you come up and you shake my hand or pat me on the back or hug my neck. I love that because you're my brother, you're my sister, and I'm closer to you than I am most of my family. I've got cousins I haven't talked to in decades. I've got family that I haven't seen in years, may never see again alive, but I want to see you. I miss you when you're not in church. I miss you when you're not around. I miss your voice in my life. You're my family. You're closer to me than my nuclear family. You're my spiritual family. And I need you strong. And I've got to watch over your family. And you watch over my family. Am I going to make mistakes? I'll tell you, yeah, I make mistakes every day. I come up short all the time. I do things wrong all the time. I make bad mistakes, but I ask you to love me and I'll love you when you make mistakes. I care for you, and if I see the enemy trying to work into his way into your life, I'm going to do all that I can to protect you because I need you. I don't want you getting off course. I don't want you getting astray. I need you. You're my family, and I love you. I care for you. I want you in my life. I want your voice. Again, I need your praise. I need your worship. It picks me up when I come in from a bad week or a bad day. I need your prayers at home, and I need your prayers in the church, and I need a strong church. I need people that love God like you love God. I need the preached word of God. I need your voice in my life. I need you. I can't make it without you. You're important. There's, much bigger churches. We went, as you know, we went to New Life, and we moved into the new building there. The sections, each section seats over 250 people. It was hard to get from one side of the church to the other after church to talk to somebody. If you wanted to talk to them, a lot of times if I needed somebody and need to touch base with them on something, I'd text them before church and say, don't leave. I got to talk to you about something, whatever. It was hard enough just to know the people around you, but there were people that we grew close to, people that that we became friends with and did a lot of. You've met some of those, the Damons, and there's others that have come and visited. But big church or small church, I've got to connect with God's people. And as we grow and get bigger, you may not know everybody as well as you do some. You may not know them on a personal basis like you do everybody here, but you need God's people. There are those that will tell you, I don't need the church. My church is the lake or whatever, or the woods, and I can understand some of that. I walk every day, as you know, and that's a good time for me to clear my head. But there's something about gathering in God's house with God's people, and the stresses and the strains in our world today that's going on and all that's happening, and it seems like the news is bad or worse or even worse, and things going on in our world that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. But this is a place of refuge. This is a place that you come in and we leave all of that behind us. And we come in, and I'm not judging you because you make more money, less money. I don't know if anybody makes less money than me, but if you make more money, less money, educated, less educated, well-dressed, not as well-dressed, none of that matters. Your background doesn't matter to you. We all serve the same God. We all believe the same message. We all have the same baptismal experience. We all have the same dad. We're born of water and of spirit. That connects me to you and you to me. And we can make it together if we all pull together. I got a couple of minutes. There's something called the law of reversal, and you've all used it at some point if you have children. If I tell you don't think of the color purple, guess what you just did? You do it. You know, if you say don't think of pink polka-dotted elephants, well, you just thought of a pink polka-dotted elephant. That's the law of reversal. Satan used the law of reversal with Eve when he begins to talk to her and he begins to tell her about what she can have, and he begins to twist the words of God. And soon Adam and Eve realize that they have lost everything that they had. And in fact, they're put out of the garden. There's an angel with the flaming sword that is put at the garden gate so that they cannot enter back in. What a horrible state. They go now that Eve has to experience childbirth, and they experience one son killing the other, and they go from not knowing what death is to now they experience death, they experience aging, they all of a sudden they go from not aging at all to realizing they're aging by the day. They see death. They have to, Adam has to put his hands in the ground to grow their food. It's a horrible life. Brother T.F. Tenney used to say, if you see something and you think the grass is greener on the other side, when you get there, you're going to realize it was probably built over a septic tank. And if you think there's anything better than the church, you're going to be mistaken. You'll have friends that you make outside the church, and that's fine. That's the only way we're going to reach them. But the most important people in my life are the people I go to church with. The most important people are those that are investing in my spiritual life. And when the enemy comes and begins to tell you the grass is greener on the other side, you need to get as close to your family, your spiritual family, as you can get. When he enters your garden, when he enters your home, and he will, and begin to try to pull you aside and to tempt you with all kind of stuff, you need to draw closer to God, but you need to also draw closer to your spiritual family. James said if we know to do good and we don't do it, it's sin. There's nothing better that I could do than to draw closer to God's family. Are there hypocrites in the church? I hope so. I don't know a better place for them to be. And if they weren't in the church, they wouldn't be a hypocrite. Are there people that make mistakes? Absolutely. But yesterday there was tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, all across the United States that attended college football games. And they paid a lot of money to go, and they paid for hotel rooms and airplane flights and food while they was there. And most of the hotels nowadays give you a 2 or 3 day minimum when you go, so you don't just rent it for one night. You're going to be there usually Friday, Saturday, or Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. A lot of the Austin hotels, it's a 3-night minimum, and the rates are doubled or tripled. But these people spent hundreds of thousands of dollars combined, millions of dollars were spent by all of these hundreds of thousands of people, and they attended a football game and they cheered the same football team, and they weren't worried about the politics of the one sitting beside them. They weren't worried about who they were voting for. They weren't worried about what race they were. They weren't worried about where they worked, how much money they made. You know what they said? We're on the same team. All they knew is they were pulling together for the same cause. We're pulling for the greatest cause there is. That's for you to make it to heaven and me make it to heaven. And we all get to heaven at the same time. Right? We all make it. And I can make it. You can make it. If we pull together as a family. Can we just stand right now and we'll end in prayer? God, we thank you for your people. God, we thank you for blessing us with this great group of people. God, they're wonderful people. God, they're an awesome people. God, we thank you for your family, the family of God. You are an awesome God, and we love you and we worship you. God, we give you ourselves. Let us draw closer to one another. Let us pull together as one. God, with your help, we're going to make it to heaven by your grace. We give you the glory and the honor in the name of Jesus. Amen.